Hello. Okay. Um, don't know where I'm going here, but that's usual. I expect you're used to that by now. I've been doing some more research on the internet. What a challenge. And you know, more and more sites are getting blocked. Um, it's very interesting. The internet is supposed to be free, but behind the scenes, there are clear mechanisms in place uh, to control and to censor, to watch for keywords. No doubt we're going to be told it's for our safety. Are you still buying that line? I hope not. It's a shell game, you know. What will we buy into? What will we accept before we stand up and say, take a hike? Interesting. Life is so much easier when you know you're not your body. When you know this isn't you, you know. As long as we fall for the illusion, the whole matrix thing, that what we see is real and that what we are is the body mind, as long as we fall for that, that's pretty much the basic definition of the matrix. It's just not so. Remember, an atom is empty space. All of the solid substance of a human body will fit in a thimble. Nothing is what it seems to be. And you're not going to be able to understand this completely or at any depth with the mind, because the mind, especially the left brain, when we isolate ourselves into the left brain, maybe we guarantee that we're plugged into the matrix. I'm not sure, but I have my suspicions that that's the case. If we have the use of the full brain, the left and the right brain, then we have a very different sense of self. I recommend everyone watch Jill Bolte Taylor's TED Talk on her stroke. As a brain surgeon or a neuroanatomist, Harvard doctor type. She had a stroke where she lost use of the left brain, stayed conscious throughout, and took many years to recover, almost died. But she is able and in the very finest position with her background and knowledge to give us a report of what it's like to have only the right brain functioning. She called it nirvana. Okay? So even within the structure of the brain, we have so much more accessible or available to us that we've been kind of shunted away from. Little children, they try, or they used to, I don't know if we still do, not to let them be left-handed. The whole thing where the left-handed path is the path of darkness and the devil, and you know, and there's so much garbage, and it's been a plot of such long standing to usher us out of use of the right brain, just like no funding for art and theater and that kind of education in school. Of course it's not funded, you know. Who knows, maybe our sense of freedom abides there or is expanded there. We've been very short-term in our thinking too in the West. The ones that are running things behind the scenes now have very long-term thinking and plans that cover centuries. It's like China. You know, they can be very, very patient. Have you heard of or read, it's a small book, Sun Tzu, The Art of War? How to Win Without Ever Firing a Shot. On theorizing and strategizing, and so long we in the West are way too impatient and too short-term in our planning. I don't know, maybe our elections have something to do with it. Every 2 years, every 4 years, they just want things to work out well for the time that they're in. And we've lost the overall moral foundation and vision of what the country's about. The Native Americans, I've heard, had built in to their way of life a consideration for 7 generations. Now, that wasn't right to say the Native Americans. That's ignorant on my part, but, you know, I don't recall which tribe does this or how widespread it is, but it's very wise. It's like the short-term planning maybe that we do, considering that we're the body mind, not realizing that we are ancient entities that are using these bodies in this play that we've got going on here, that we sometimes wonder who scripted, who's the director, my God, you know, not to mention the producer. It's interesting when you throw off the tyranny, the literal tyranny of the left brain that is so much a part of our society. You open up in ways that are so surprising. You realize that literally anything is possible, because the reality is this is quite an anything that has happened. This space and this place that we find ourselves in, where we're trying to sort things out without knowing and understanding the very most basic components that we're working with. What is the matrix? Who am I? What am I? And if you've given any thought to it at all, you'll realize every other thought in your head, every other idea and belief rest on that foundation, on the most fundamental questions. If we cannot answer those, then it's not that we're lost, but someone can come in and give us a different definition for those, and it will invalidate basically the whole structure that we've built that we're calling our reality, because that's the foundation. Who am I? What is the nature of reality? And when you throw over the left brain's tyranny and control of that, see, that's the mechanism whereby the control over at least Western society is maintained, is by deifying thought and the left brain perspective and view of life. And thus we can have science in the shape that it's in, which is very sad. I mean, the scientists admit themselves. How does science change? By the death of the old ones. You know, ideas are put in place and they have big names that are behind them, and nobody really gets to question these ideas. It's an amazement when someone like a Nassim Haramein comes along, or a Marco Rodin, uh, with new ideas. It's amazing that they get any airtime at all to share their thoughts and their perspective and their vision. It's very hard. There are a lot of truly wonderful people in the world of science that have to do what they do quietly because they can't, they risk everything to speak out loud if what they say goes against the grain of the establishment there. That's just not acceptable, folks. And I think we all know it, but our noses are kept so tightly to the grindstone, especially while we're working and raising children and young. I guess that's why the old people get to be the thinkers, because we're not quite so tied down like that. And so we can look up from the rat race and look around and ponder things more deeply. We have the luxury of that. So anyway, I'm feeling more the fool than ever. I was just listening to Thomas, what's his name? Isn't that something? Parsons, Tony Parsons. And I don't know. There's this non-dualism, and a lot of people, it's Advaita. A lot of people follow that path and that teaching. And I find that they come at it in different ways. And what I really don't like to see, though, is I don't like to see one teacher casting stones at another and saying the other's view of things isn't right. And what brought that up is Parsons spoke out, I don't know that you could say against, but denigrated the understanding and the perspective, view, and teaching of Eckhart Tolle. And I just don't like to see that. I think we have different ways of awakening. Who knows? Maybe we will all awaken into different realities. I don't know. I mean, I do know about the paradox that as we step up out of the third dimension, we just don't need to polarize. We find that we contain both sides of the coin, and we find that we see things and we're able to contain the dichotomies for opposite things to be true and for that to be okay. And it's not a loyal to the left brain kind of way of being. I don't apologize for that. That's just what it is. That's how I see it. But Mooji is Advaita, Tolle is, Parsons is. There are many that speak for this. And it's really interesting because they talk of not being a person. There are no persons. And I've spoken about that before, how very strange it is when you first come upon it. Not a person. Well, then what am I? Come on, look at me. Here I am. Is this not a person? is your first response. But if we don't reject it outright, and if we just allow for the possibility, you know, one of my favorite sayings, anything is possible, anything. And so if we just put it in heart and just drop it there, leave it alone a while, you know, let it simmer in there, see what understanding comes up. I'm not a person. You lose your personhood at a certain point, and for me, it's come gently by stages. And I admit I slip back into it a lot. I try to walk both worlds, the mental and the world of heart, because I don't want to disappear off into some state where it's like Richard Moss said, you know, the transcendent is available, and it's real, and it's a part of who and what we are. And we do. We touch it, we access it. But I think I'm with Richard. I don't choose that. I choose my humanity. Both are true, both are real, and being balanced is really good. But I find it better to report from my smallness. We all have this in common, our humanity. But even so, over time, when we come into heart, there's a union or a unity there. You know, I must be crazy trying to explain not being a person. But on the other hand, it's such a cop-out to say, well, this just doesn't fit into words. Maybe it doesn't, but you know, I guess I have fun making a fool of myself trying sometimes to fit it into words, because I know that along with my words, you get the flow of what's coming through heart, or whatever we want to call it, you know, the energy. We're energy beings. That's what we truly are. And we're receiving frequencies and vibrations of energy that we're translating into the world around us. But really, they're just frequencies. And I have a sneaking suspicion that, have you ever seen a real hologram? The kind that unless you have the laser aimed at it, it just looks like wavy, you know, waves on a pond or something. Uh, Fingerprints, swirly things like that. Maybe that's closer to reality than what we're seeing here. I have fun with that sometimes. Don't be afraid to lose your grip on reality. Reality, as we've been taught to think it is all wrong anyway. So maybe that's what I'll call this one. Don't be afraid to lose your grip on reality. I don't want to go on too long. Good day. Hello. Okay. Don't know where I'm going here, but that's usual. I expect you're used to that by now. I've been doing some more research on the internet. What a challenge. And you know, more and more sites are getting blocked. It's very interesting. The internet is supposed to be free, but behind the scenes, there are clear mechanisms in place to control and to censor. to watch for keywords. No doubt it's we're going to be told it's for our safety. Are you still buying that line? I hope not. It's a shell game, you know. What will we buy into? What will we accept before we stand up and say, take a hike? Interesting. Life is so much easier when you know you're not your body. When you know this isn't you. You know, as long as we fall for the illusion, the whole matrix thing, that what we see is real and that what we are is the body mind, as long as we fall for that, that's pretty much the basic definition of the matrix. It's just not so. Remember, an atom is empty space. All of the solid substance of a human body will fit in a thimble. Nothing is what it seems to be. And